Kate is, as you know, is the author of some of my favorite books, and I'm sure some of yours, Because of Winn-Dixie, Tiger Rising, The Tale of Despereaux, The Miraculous Journey of Edward Tulane, The Magician's Elephant, and a bunch of books about a pig who loves toast. Ladies and gentlemen, Kate DiCamillo.
I am happy and proud to say that I've gotten to the point in my life where when I sit next to people on an airplane and they say, "What do you do for a living?" I get to say, "I'm a writer." The Curlin collection is at the University of Minnesota, and anybody can go in and ask to see, the rough drafts of a book that you loved when you were a kid. I've never put these gloves on before. It makes me think of the scene at the end of Gone with the Wind when Melanie's dying, but that's not relevant. Okay, all these boxes have nothing on them except for my name, DiCamillo Kate. Oh, this is Because of Winn-Dixie, which is my first book, second draft. I'm gonna read this. 2 onions, 4 garlic bulbs, serendipity, and a dog named Winn-Dixie. I think that was the title in the beginning. It doesn't bode well. This is a very simple story about a girl who finds a dog in a grocery store, and through that dog meets a lot of other people in town. Chapter 1. My name is India Opal Baloney, and last summer my daddy, the preacher, sent me to the store for a box of macaroni and cheese, some white rice, and 2 tomatoes, and I came back with a dog. This is what happened. I walked into the produce. He started to cry. The dog leaned over him real concerned and licked his face. "Please," said the manager, "somebody call the pound." "Wait a minute," I hollered. "That's my dog. Don't call the pound." All the Winn-Dixie employees turned around and looked at me, and I knew I had done something big and maybe stupid too, but I couldn't help it. I couldn't let that dog go to the pound. "Here, boy," I said. Looking good, Henry. You're looking good. I know that I never would have written that book if I hadn't moved from Florida to Minnesota, because it is so much a book about being in a new place and being homesick, and it's very much a product of that move. It was the first time in my life that I'd been for a considerable period of time without access to a dog. Henry, we're not going to take some facsimile. Roll down. Okay, roll over. There's a line in Because of Winn-Dixie where Opal says, "Everything that happened to me that summer happened because of Winn-Dixie." Everything that happened to me as a writer happened, because of Winn-Dixie. So, lucky me. Yeah. All of a sudden, things seem a little bit more possible. And you know where I go? And here. Once a week, my publisher packages up the letters that come from me from readers and sends them to me. I'm going to read this one. "Dear Kate DiCamillo, I really like the book Tale of Despereaux. It was the first real, underlined, story I've ever read. I usually say, quote, 'Sure, that's a regular story,' end quote. But for yours, I say, 'Wow, period, real story.'" How can you not save something like that? I wonder if she would be willing to blurb my books. Some stuff that kids send in the mail sometimes. This is one of my favorites. That's a line from Despereaux. "I honor you." Drew a mouse on the back of it. Me and my mom, my father took that picture. I like having it in the office because that small person is part of the reason that I write, I think, to make the world safe for that kid. There's that kid again. There I am in my Bugs Bunny costume. I loved school. I loved staying inside the lines, all of that. Nothing about me is very artisty. So I went through, all of, kindergarten through 12th grade just being, a really good student. Everything was easy. And then not so much. It was very hard for my mother to go to the grocery store. Grew up in a small town, and you know, I had gone off in clouds of glory. And it's like, what's Kate doing? Oh, you know, she's working at a campground. And I floundered all through my 20s. I was existing in this kind of like alternate reality, going around wearing my black turtleneck, muttering to myself about how I was going to become a writer and not writing. I worked at Disney World, I worked in a greenhouse, and everywhere that I went, I was seeing things that were kind of off of the mainstream, and it helped me understand ultimately myself better, but also just the human heart in general.
Great. She wants to know if you can try to sign her ears, too.
Sure. I'm all about signing ears. When you write for kids, people expect A, that you have kids, which I don't, or B, that you take your stories to kids as you're working on them and vet them, which I don't. And so there's always this puzzled, how do you get into the head of a 10-year-old kind of question? And the answer is, well, I was one. Have you read this, Abby?
At school.
At school? Because you had to?
No.
Okay, good. Kids ask, where do you get your ideas? I say I always have the notebook with me. And sometimes things pop into my head. Sometimes I see things that I think will become stories. A lot of times I'll overhear snatches of dialogue when I'm in a public place. Into the notebook. Beware of the notebook. Let's go deeper into my subconscious. Now you can see my how my gross motor skills are not what they. This always came up on every report card of mine, and I'm not lying. Kate is a very intelligent little girl. She cannot use scissors. That was like the. And here's the evidence. I don't know how to get this off of here. Tale of Despereaux is the story of a mouse who is different than other mice. Because of that, incredible things happen to him. My best friend's son asked me for the story of an unlikely hero with exceptionally large ears.
Are you a rat?
No.
A mouse?
I am a gentleman.
I will have parents point out sometimes how much sadness and sorrow is in my books. Would it be possible for me to have a last word with the princess? Despereaux asked. A word, said the second hood. You want a word with a human? I want to tell her what has happened to me. Geez, said the first hood. He stopped and stamped a paw on the floor in frustration. Cripes, you can't learn, can you? The voice was terribly familiar to Despereaux. Furlough, he said. What? Said the first hood irritably. Despereaux shuddered. His own brother was delivering him to the dungeon. I would hope that there's actually a greater amount of hope and laughter and love.
Will you promise to finish your story and tell me how it ends?
Yes. It will be my quest.
Your quest? You are a very brave mouse.
For some reason,
Thank you.
there's this mistaken notion that kids don't exist in the same world that we do.
Let the games begin!
And they're not seeing the same things that we see. And so therefore the harder things, the more difficult things, the terrible things are just invisible to them, which I just think is absolute nonsense. They're here, they're human beings. Their hearts get broken the same way ours do. I used to say that any kid who gets on a school bus every day knows everything that you need to know about terror and fear and darkness. It's just, the world is hard. The world is beautiful, the world is hard. Fiction is duty-bound to reflect the world as it is, I think. Oh, this is fun. Much more fun to look at art than it is writing. Rough sketches from Chris Van Dusen, the artist for these. That's very fun to see. When I was a kid, and I, as a reader poking around in the library, learned that if that Newbery medal was on a book, then I was guaranteed a good read. You know, when they called and they went through their spiel, and I said, I need for you to say it again. Because I live in my head. You know, I'm imagining things all the time. Call a neurotic person and tell them they've won the Newbery. It's like, did I imagine that? And it does virtually guarantee that the book will stay in print, which is huge. You know, I'll be gone, the book will still be here. It's great. I did something constructive, you know, which is something that my mother suggested to me often. Why don't you do something constructive? I did. I think that writing books for kids, and this is a pretty dangerous thing to say, I guess, but it's really important. It matters. The stories that you read when you're a kid take on this huge potency that lasts for the rest of your life.
This one's for me. I read this when my gerbil died.
I don't just read it and say, oh, the person's sad, oh, the person's happy. I actually feel those emotions.
To actually see the kids, it never gets old for me. It's an astonishing experience every time. It's a physical evidence of the last 10 years of my life. I want to keep going. I want another cart.